Excellent. And thank you so much, Fiona, for inviting me. As Fiona said, my name's Kaya Wafena, and I'm the Director for Sheep and Goat Traceability with the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development. Before we begin this afternoon, and I'm just having some technical issues here, guys, sorry. There we go. I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional lands on which we're meeting today. I'm coming to you from Wiradjuri country here in lovely Orange, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So today we're going to have a little bit of a chat about the requirements for eID in relation to sheep and goats here in New South Wales and your requirements as a producer going forwards. So why is eID traceability in livestock important, specifically in relation to sheep and goats? It's very much about being able to, in the event that we may have a disease outbreak or a residue issue or incident, the time that it will allow us to be able to respond a lot quicker than our current mob-based visual system. It's about ensuring product integrity, and that's probably got a lot to do with being able to trace that particular product right throughout the supply chain, from farm to processor, and in some instances continuing right through to the supermarket shelf, depending on how and where you buy your product. And probably most importantly, it's about market access. And that market access is not only in relation to red meat, but also in relation to any of our sheep products, so obviously wool as well. So making sure that in the event that we do have an outbreak or residue incident, that we're able to manage that and be able to work with our trading partners, specifically those export ones, to be able to get us back into the market as soon as possible and keep those dollars flowing for you as a producer. So what is it, the traceability and the requirements for eIDs? So in order for the system to work, there's a requirement for every livestock owner to have a property identification code. You will need to include a NLIS device. So currently we have the mob-based tags, and as of the 1st of January 2021, all sheep and goats, kids, lambs and kids born from that date are required to have a tag prior to leaving the property. Those particular devices are actually linked to your the NLIS database. So really important for you guys to jump on to the NLIS database. If you haven't already created an account, create an account, and you'll be able to then see any devices that are currently linked to your account. And then finally, you also need to complete a national vendor declaration form or a stock transport statement, just depending on how you're selling and where you're selling through and the type of product you're selling. So what's the timeline for sheep and goat eID here in New South Wales? We've actually been going now for close to 10 months. So back in June 2024, processors started scanning any of the eID devices that were coming through their works. As I said, from 1 January 2025, any animals born on or after that date are required to have an electronic identification device prior to leaving their property. There's also been a requirement for sale yards and agents and goat depots to start scanning any animals that come through their yards that may have a device irrelevant of age. And there's also a requirement for producers or event organisers to undertake property-to-property transfers, both of visual and the eID tags. Come 1 January 2027, there'll be a requirement for all sheep and goats to be tagged prior to leaving their property. So what does that mean for you on the ground? If you haven't started lambing this year, you're pretty lucky. Any of those animals that haven't been born yet, they only need a visual tag until 2027. But anything born this year require to have an eID, and going forward, if any animal bought from this point forward will need to have an eID. So just reiterating, if your animals never leave your property, it's really good for you. You don't need to identify those animals. It's only when they're leaving your property. If you do movements from your property or to your property, you need to ensure that the appropriate transactions have taken place on the database within 2 days. And I'll go a little bit further into who's responsible for that going forward. And there's also the need for any movements to be accompanied by a national vendor declaration form, whether that be the current e-form or paper-based form, or if you might be using the ENVD app. So there's a number of options out there in relation to meeting that national vendor declaration requirement. So what is an eID? So it looks very similar to your current visual tags, but what it is, it's a tag that contains a microchip, an RFID. And that's the same technology that's used in cattle NLIS, and it's also the same technology that is used in our dogs and cats when they're microchipped. So on the outside of your tag, you'll see an NLIS identification number. Lots of numbers. It actually means something for those that want to know what they are. So the first lot of letters and numbers make up your PIC. We then have a letter that identifies who the manufacturer is. So each manufacturer has a specific letter. We then have a device type. So that's in relation to not only the breed of the animal, but whether it is a post-breeder or a vendor-bred animal. And then there's also a serial number. Those serial numbers can be determined by yourself, so it can be done chronologically, or you can specifically outline what you want those serial numbers to be. And like your current visual tags, you can include visual identification. It might be the property name, it might be the names of the animals, anything basically that you're wanting to pop on those tags, you can also include. So when you buy your tags, you will have information uploaded directly to your NLIS database account from the manufacturer. And if you jump on and have a look at that information, you'll actually see that there's actually 2 pieces of information. So you're provided with both the NLS ID, so that outside visual number, and you're also provided with the RFID, which is basically the electronic chip number. So you can use the scanning equipment and it'll read that RFID number, or you can use do a visual use of the NLS ID number. We currently have the year of birth colours available to producers. Not compulsory here in New South Wales. They are compulsory in some states. The only compulsory thing is that if the animal is not born on your property, then there is a need, if it loses a tag or arrives on your property without a tag, that it will need to have a pink post-breeder tag popped in its ear before it leaves your property. How do we order accredited NLIS devices? So there's a number of ways. We can either pop in to our rural merchandising store and do it that way, or there's a number of suppliers that also have online ordering platforms. So option is really up to you. We recommend that you order at least 14 days prior to needing them. This allows for the turnaround, and probably to be safe this year, I'd be saying maybe if you can allow even a little bit longer, that's highly recommended, because we've got so many states and so many producers coming on board at the moment, trying to get in and get their devices. So at times there is a bit of a backlog. We also saw some impacts on some of the manufacturing plants from Cyclone Alfred, which did see a delay in the production of some tags for a short period of time. But what you will need to do to place those orders, you'll need your PIC details. You'll need to identify the type of livestock that you're wanting the device for. So is it a sheep or is it a goat? And it's really important, guys, that if you have both, to make sure you have specific tags for each of those different species, and that you're not popping goat devices into sheep or vice versa. And then if you're wanting to use the year of colour birth, then you can select the colour for your particular property or whatever you're wanting to use. And then, as I said, you may need to consider buying some of the pink post-breeder devices as well. You're probably asking why I'm using the word device rather than tag. And the reason being is we actually have some NLIS accredited devices available to the goat industry for animals that actually have no ears. So there is a breed of earless goat. They basically just have a little nub. And for those particular animals, there is an accredited leg band. So it basically looks like a bracelet for goats in a lovely yellow colour. So that's why we use the terminology device rather than tag. As I mentioned earlier, really important that we use the species-specific device. So making sure, again, we actually recently saw a number of cattle tags turn up in sheep at some of our sale yards in recent weeks. So just making sure that you do have the appropriate device, that it is an NLIS accredited device. So just make sure when you buy your devices that it has the little NLIS logo stamp on it. If it doesn't have that stamp, it's not accredited and can't be used. So if you're already using management tags, they may or may not be NLIS accredited. So I would highly encourage you to have a look to make sure that you're using NLIS accredited devices before you send them off. If an eID device is lost or it's not reading, then there's the requirement to replace that device prior to the animal leaving your property. And unlike cattle, you can pop the devices in either ear. So what changes? For you guys as wool producers, there's only one change. All the rules stay the same. The timeframes in which you need to do transfers, who is responsible for transfers, and the requirements for NVDs all stay the same. The only thing that's changing is we're switching from that visual mob-based device to an electronic device. When do we need to update the NLIS database, and who needs to do that? So it needs to be done when there are movements between two different property identification codes. So this might be private sales, animals being adjusted or lent, animals that are being moved between properties owned by you but has separate PICs. There's also a requirement for it to be done through online selling platforms such as Auction Plus and Gumtree, and also a requirement for it to be done attending events such as shows, or if you supply animals as part of dog trialling or those sort of events, there's also a requirement for those transactions to take place. And those transactions need to be updated within a 48-hour period after the livestock have moved. What information do you need to make a transfer? So you will need, as I said, either the NLIS number, which is that number printed on the outside, or if you have availability of using a reader, you can use the RFID number. You'll need information in relation to the PICs from where the animals are going and to where the animals, from where they've come, and where they're going to, the date that the transaction occurred, and then a copy of either the NVD number, or if it's just a movement between private properties, you may have a travelling stock statement. If you are using the National Vendor Declaration forms, really important now going forward that you're filling out those forms correctly. There's actually 2 places now that we need to fill information on our National Declaration forms. So if your animals just have a visual tag, continue to fill it out in that top section as you have been doing up until now, with the number of tags and the PIC of that particular device. If you're also sending animals out that do have an eID device, you do need to include down in that yellow box highlighted the number of animals with eID devices leaving your property as well. Who needs to upload the information to the NLIS database? If you're selling to a sale yard, the livestock agent or the sale yard manager is responsible for those transactions. If you're selling directly to a processing plant, the processor is responsible for those transactions. And as I mentioned previously, if you're the buyer or the receiver, then it's the responsibility of that buyer or receiver to ensure that those animals are transferred from the place of origin to your particular pick. And again, that includes private sales, online auctions, platforms such as Facebook, as well as shows and other events. Pick reconciliations. We strongly encourage, as part of the implementation, that livestock owners manage or keep an eye on the devices that are on their property. And so basically a pick reconciliation is a stock take of all the devices on your property. And what it does is it helps identify discrepancies between devices that are currently on your property and those that are registered to the NLIS database. This is actually a really useful tool, guys, if you're doing, and we all have to do it, the good old tax return, annual tax return. If you do, we recommend if you do a pick reconciliation annually, you'll be able to use that particular information to generate reports for your accountants to assist in that particular process of reporting livestock numbers and also keeping your NLIS database accounts up to date and relevant. Why perform a pick reconciliation? Basically, it ensures that all the transfers have been done correctly. So we do encourage, if you are selling animals privately or through an Auction Plus system or an online system, and you find that they haven't been done, you can either contact the buyer, or you do have the ability to be able to do those transactions yourselves. So just make sure that the devices on your property are accurate. It's required as part of the LPA accreditation and audit process. So we know that there are random audits under the LPA accreditation process. As I mentioned earlier, really important for us to be able to respond rapidly in the events of disease outbreaks or contamination and residential issues. And I'll give a quick example in relation to that. So there was a study done back in 2020 in relation comparing eID devices, because they've been using them in Victoria now since 2017, and in New South Wales using the visual system. What we did was we tried to identify how many animals we could trace for the past 30 days. And we gave ourselves a 24-hour period to be able to track as many animals in that 30 days. Using the visual-based system, we were only able to trace 78% of those animals for the past 30 days. For the eID system that Victoria had implemented, we were actually able to get up around that 96, 98%. So significant improvements. What's also really important is while we didn't get to that 100% in that 24-hour period, we were able to get to a very high 99 plus confidence rate, but it took nearly 6 months for us to be able to complete all those transactions and undertake all those investigations. So you can think in the event of a disease outbreak or contamination or residue issue, if it takes us 6 months, the potential for spread or products going into the market for significant periods of time with those particular issues potentially being found. What it also does is, if we do have, unfortunately, one of those incidences, if you're able to demonstrate through your record keeping that actually animal A isn't on your property, it has been transferred off, and animal A may have been in contact with a contaminated product or a diseased animal, it will allow you to potentially avoid quarantine measures in the event of an outbreak. The other thing for those that are EU accredited, there is a requirement under the EU accreditation system to have lifetime traceability and undertake annual audits as part of that accreditation process. What do you need to consider when buying devices and using devices? The first thing is, as I said, make sure that it is NLIS compliant. So it's got that little map of Australia stamp, which is the NLIS accreditation stamp. Think about what's the best type of tag for my operation. So is it the loop tags, or is it potentially the button tags? Really personal preferences might depend on the type of fencing you have, whether you've got a browsing enterprise or a grazing enterprise, such as pastures versus shrubs. So these are some of the things for you to consider. The other thing to consider is the size of the device and the size of the pin in the device. So again, some people prefer a smaller pin, and some people prefer the thicker pin. Just depends on the type of animal that you've got and what your personal preference is. What's really important, guys, is to make sure that you're using the accredited applicator for that particular device. Especially is also really important to make sure that the applicator that you have for your current visual tags may not be, even if it's the same brand, may not be consistent or being able to use with your eID tag. So there is one particular brand that if you use the current mob-based tag applicator on eID, you actually crunch the eID and make it not working. It breaks it basically. So for the sake of an $80 applicator, please ensure that you do use the accredited device to the accredited tag. Application is also really important. So we're finding that the retention quality of tags can be due to where the animal is actually tagged, or the placement of the tag within the ear. So just make sure, and you can see we've got a number of pictures there of correct and incorrect application. The other thing is, if you are tagging at lambing, just making sure that you allow enough room for the ear to grow out. You quite often see animals in sale yards that are coming in with curled up ears just due to the placement of the animals, placement of the tag being incorrect. The other thing is to be really careful in relation to the cleanliness of the equipment. So obviously, if the equipment is dirty, there is that potential for infection, and quite often you see when there is infection, larger holes occurring around those pin or post sizes, and that quite often leads to incorrect lower retention, or the tearing of the ear a lot easier. There's a number of options out on the market if you need scanners, and the first thing is, do you actually need a scanner? That's probably really up to you and your business enterprise, but there are a number of different options out there on the market, anything from the little blue Allflex handheld reader, which retails from as low as $600. You can then go all the way up to the U-Butte fancy panel readers or run-through readers that they have at the sale yards, where you're looking at potentially thousands of dollars. Probably difficult to see the image of the guy taking a photo of the ear tag. So for those of you, and I'm assuming probably not many here, but especially hobby farmers and small landowners that are only bringing 1 or 2 animals onto their property, this is an option that they can do. They can take a photo of the tag, and it just makes it a lot easier to read that tag number, to be able to upload that NLIS number to the database. Just really want to reiterate that if you haven't done so, there is currently the New South Wales Sheep and Goat eID discount program. So it is for 2025 white devices only. It's currently open and will be open until the 31st of October 2025. It's applied at the point of sale for those people purchasing under 3,500 devices. So basically, if you're ordering less than 3,500, pop into your merchandise or jump online, order your tags, and that 76-cent discount will be applied at the time of purchase. For those of you that are wanting more than 3,500 devices, you will need to jump on the website for the Department of Primary Industries and download one of the order application forms, send that through to us, and then we'll assess that. And once you've received your approval certificate, you just provide that to the manufacturer or your merchandiser, and that will ensure that you're able to get those devices. For those that are ordering under $3,500, it is only a one order per pick application. So really think about the numbers that you're applying for this year, for 2025. For those over 3,500, we do allow multiple orders across the year to allow for those that might have multiple lambing times, allow for cash flow such as different BAS statement periods. So a little bit more flexibility with those with the larger numbers. We have plenty of resources and plenty of information on our website, and by all means, jump on and have a look at that. We've got some great case studies and videos looking at some different operations. So from goats through to renter goats through to commercial systems and how they're using the technology both in sheep meat, lamb and wool systems. So jump on and have a look. We also have our quarterly newsletter. So if you're wanting to keep up to date with any information in relation to eID, if we've got any additional rebate programs or assistance programs going out there, training, education times, please jump on our website, plenty of information out there. So that's me for my presentation. Thank you, Fiona, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions that have come through. Just a comment that one person seems to think that the cost has been changing. Are you finding that out and about as well?
No, so what we've actually been doing is on the first Monday of every month, or first working Monday of every month, we've actually been doing monitoring of every eID company that supplies tags here in New South Wales. So there is only 5, and we have seen no increase in pricing of the devices. Probably the only one I will say is an exception is Allflex, and that's because they've actually got a brand new type of device. So they've gone from, rather than having device A and the price has gone up for device A, they've gone device A and they've replaced that with device B, which has apparently some additional quality assurances that the previous one does. It's a whole new product. So I believe they are a couple of cents more expensive. But in general, we actually have as part of the program that tag manufacturers are not allowed to put their prices up for the product without seeking permission from the department. So yeah, very much so.
Right. Clarifying that comment, there's a significant increase from the previous tags versus NLA's device.
So that particular piece, definitely. So there is a price difference between a visual tag and an eID tag. Yes, I do appreciate that. Yes.
Are there any more tags that are more robust than others?
So in order for a tag to become NLIS accredited, they actually have to go through a 3-year accreditation process. And as part of that accreditation process, there's a number of variabilities that get tested. The success in reading the device and also that retention or robustness. And they test those in various formats. So anything that is NLIS accredited has met all those requirements in relation to retention, robustness, and readability. So as long as you're ordering an NLIS accredited device and you're not hopping on Temu or Shein or Alibaba, we say that they're much of a muchness, and really it comes down to personal preference.
For this, I'm assuming is NLIS database, for the updating of it, who does this, the receiver or the sender?
So again, if it's a private transaction or if you're buying off Auctions Plus, it's the receiver. If you're sending through either a sale yard or directly to the processor, then the sale yard or the processor will do that. But for all other movements and transactions, it's the receiver.
A couple of interstate questions. First one from Nick. Is there any discount plans for purchasing eID tags in Queensland?
I believe there is currently a rebate program in Queensland in relation to equipment and devices. I don't know the specifics of it. I would recommend if they jump onto the Queensland agricultural website, they'd be able to find that information out. But yes, there are some support packages in Queensland for producers.
And I have one more question. So if you would like to get any questions answered, just pop it forward. Just going. Victoria's had this mandated since 2017. Have they seen any benefit, do you know, in terms of market access to date?
As a whole state, potentially not. What we are finding is specific marketers or specific parts of the industry. So there are some processors out there that are looking to target that niche market where they can provide a paddock to plate assurance. They're definitely finding a premium price and a premium product in the processes that have that technology that allow them to be able to trace it right through to the supermarket shelf or to the client shelf. So thankfully, I'm going to say touch wood, we haven't had any disease outbreaks that we've had to test it and had to test that getting back into a market. What I can say is with the FMD outbreak that was in South Africa, and excuse me, I can't remember the time period, but in relation to South Africa being able to get back into the wool market into China, it took them 7 years to regain that market access because they didn't have in place a traceability program that the Chinese were comfortable with. So, we would hope, or we would think, that hopefully with a system where we can provide a better reassurance that we'd be able to get back into those markets a lot quicker.
It's a long time, isn't it?
It is a long time, not having income.
So this is a producer. So just confirming going forward, when selling lambs to a processor, they do the scanning.
Correct.
This producer doesn't have
to do anything.
Then doesn't have to scan them before they leave the farm. Is that correct?
That's correct. All that producer needs to do is whack a tag in the ear and put them on a truck.
Perfect. Okay.